Well, hello there, folks! Ooh, widescreen. Neat! I just want to quickly say thank you to everyone who's watched my shorts, subscribed, left comments, and all round just made me a very happy goat these last few weeks. You guys make me feel so loved! I'm still a ways off of doing big, long videos for a while, and I'm really comfy making shorts as is right now. But in the meantime, a number of people have been asking me to put some of my story shorts into a compilation video for a while, even back when I didn't have many to compile to begin with. So now that I have, more than that, I figured, why not? Just bear in mind that I've been learning as I go here, so any differences in the quality or editing mistakes already keep me up at night. So without further ado, here's a compilation of my first 10 story shorts to celebrate the amazing milestone of subscribers. Enjoy! DM changes narrative to suit their partner. I, the bard, psychic lance the evil dwarf king while our tiefling wizard charged, shoving him into the pit of spikes, quickly using mage hand to grab the crown we needed to control the dragon terrorizing the town. We were so pumped and excited that we got an awesome death scene for the first big bad we encountered. Unfortunately, one player, DM's partner and another bard, wanted to save the corrupted dwarf and not kill him. They whined, "I wanted to save him. He could be a nice dwarf. Hey, that's not fair." And the DM, being their partner, reversed the nat 20 kill and everything we did to let their partner mage hand the dwarf and try and save him. The crown fell into the pit below. The dwarf was beyond corrupted for centuries and was evil. We were told in the narrative by NPCs he's beyond saving. His old self was lost. I, the bard, didn't return for sessions after that because of the argument we all had after the fact. Me to DM partner. What's not fair is you went against the plan we had all agreed on and suddenly wanted to divine intervention a nat 20 attack me and Tiefling did because you wanted attention. The DM didn't like this kind of talk toward their partner from me and the other players, so I responded, "I get you're the DM, but you can't change the story because your boyfriend doesn't get his way. That's not fair to the rest of us." As the player refused to change the narrative of saving the Dwarf King, we all unanimously agreed that we aren't continuing until we play the way the roles went. We never continued the campaign after that, unfortunately. My question for you all is this. When a couple plays tabletop games, does this type of behaviour happen often or rarely for some of you? I understand that romancing adds a different dynamic, but I'm specifically referring to situations where one partner throws a tantrum and demands that the DM changes the game so they always win, or something similar. Okay, stating the bleeding obvious here, yes, it's incredibly unfair to change the roles, change the outcome, change the story to satisfy any particular player, especially when that's your own partner. That's not good, that's bad form as a DM. But more to it than that, I see this as a bad precedent in the relationship. You're supposed to be sharing your hobbies and interests and passions with your partner, not sharing your partner with your hobbies and passions and interests. You are still both individuals and you are still both responsible for your own enjoyment of your individual or shared hobbies. You're not supposed to envelop each other in your interests and passions. Your partner is the DM, so let them be the DM. Not to mention, it is incredibly unfair to the rest of the players to make them basically props in DM and partner's date night game. That's not what they signed up for, that's not what they consented to. They are there for their own passion, their own enjoyment. They love the game and it's their game too. I do think it's a shame that the whole game had to fall apart because of this, but if roles are being changed willy-nilly, that's bad D&D, and no D&D is better than bad D&D. So yeah, that's what I think about this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. DM made me 1v6 my own party in our first session and my character perma-died. Just getting into D&D, and our group has been planning on starting a long-span campaign, but just to introduce everyone who's never played it before, we've decided to do an entire day adventure for Session 0. I had made a character with a fun little backstory and a planned character arc where he learned to love his worst traits, etc. Being excited for it, I got everyone's Hero Forge characters, 3D printed them, and hand painted them in preparation for this long campaign and today's Session 0. The DM thought of this fun twist at the end of Session 0, where my character got corrupted by the artifact we're smuggling, turning me against the party. I hit one of them for a measly 4 damage before getting utterly wiped by our enraged barbarian and mage. I didn't get to go a second turn, you know, to maybe drop the artifact or hide, whatever, before my character was confirmed dead by the DM. I asked if I could roll a death saving throw. DM said no because I'm technically classed as an enemy to the party. Since my character's corrupted form turned back to normal after dropping the artifact, I asked our team's cleric if he could revive me and he said absolutely not, since I just turned on them and attacked them, even after the DM explained how the corrupted from the artifact reverted. So my character just got left behind, dead. All that preparation and backstory, gone. All that time 3D printing, painting, wiped. I got asked to make a new character sheet for session 1 along with jokes on the Discord how he died so easily, gone and already forgotten. I just felt that was an entirely unbalanced and frankly unnecessary thing to do, forcibly turning me against the team. It couldn't have been a surprise to the DM that I died against 6 player characters. I'm just at a loss because I didn't even get into our first session and now I'm expected to make a new character. I'm considering just not returning to the game because of simply how frustrated I am with the DM's decision and everyone else's actions in just letting me stay dead and poking fun about the whole ordeal. Am I being unreasonable? I haven't confronted anyone yet because I was simply too angry last night to say anything level-headed, but what do I even say? My joy and excitement for the Longspan campaign is gone, and it feels unfair everyone gets to keep the figures I printed and painted for them whilst mine is retired on the shelf day 1. Wow. Okay, yeah, no, you don't need a new character, you need a new game, with a new DM and a new party. Making everyone those figures and then being treated like that is not okay, especially if you're a relatively new player. I'm sure there's another table out there who would absolutely love to have you and your 3D printer. Don't let these people kill your joy for the game, keep the character and take it to people that actually deserve your level of effort and enthusiasm. Cause this is just bullying. It sounds like they all might have known this was going to happen beforehand and were all having a laugh at OP's expense. They all might have been in on this. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I introduced my nephew to D&D, then watched his campaign implode after 3 sessions. When my nephew-in-law got into D&D, I was thrilled. I'd introduced him to the game in the first place, and when he told me he wanted to run his first campaign and asked me to join, I happily said yes. I figured I could be a supportive player and help keep things on track if needed. We had what he called a Session 0, though in reality it was just a character creation session, and that's where things went off the rails immediately. His brother created a neutral evil tiefling warlock whose goal was, and I quote, to start a demon-worshipping cult with human sacrifices. His sister rolled up a dragonborn rogue whose entire character concept was so that she could backflip everywhere. That's it, that was the whole motivation. And then my brother made a Goliath barbarian modeled after Grok from Critical Role, except with one special twist. He was horribly racist towards tieflings and dragonborn? Now, you might think that's edgy and probably not great for group cohesion, but it gets worse. He made the character racist specifically because there were tiefling and dragonborn player characters in the party. It was deliberate. Meanwhile, I came in with a human fighter, a grounded character with a full 1-page backstory, personal NPCs, and multiple plot hooks designed to connect with the rest of the group. The DM had asked all of us to prepare these things, and I was the only one who actually did. Needless to say, I didn't show up for the first real session. There was no point trying to roleplay with a cultist, an acrobat, and a racist grog clone. The campaign fell apart by session 3. Postscript. Lesson learned? You can bring a well-rounded character, a fleshed-out backstory, and a cooperative attitude. But if everyone else shows up to LARP their worst impulses, no amount of narrative glue is going to hold that campaign together. A real Session 0 isn't just for rolling stats, it's for setting expectations, building chemistry, and making sure no one's character concept is actively ruining the party. Okay, first things first, the words grog and racist should never appear in the same sentence unless that sentence is, Grog punched him in his racist face. The man is a giant teddy bear uncle and I will die on this hill. Anyway, backflipping Dragonborn Rogue is the best idea for a character I've ever heard. Someone put this kid in Critical Role now. And genuinely good on the uncle for trying to get his nephew into D&D, solid attempt, genuine effort, and at the end of the day I hope they outgrow this behavior because even in fantasy this should not fly. Well, that's my thoughts on this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Kicked from an otherwise awesome group for not acting like a fighter. For reference, I love taking vanilla AF fighter builds and developing deep roleplay around them. It lets me play a central role without hogging the spotlight from other players, and it gives me some writing challenges. Some time back, I created a fighter for my friend's game, and I explicitly made the character hesitant towards violence. He was one of those, I won't start a fight, but I will end it types, at least when it came to protecting his friends. I kind of based his personality on one of my dogs. For the first few sessions, this was fine, but eventually the DM approached me and said that there were complaints about MC for not acting like a fighter. My immediate concern was that I must not have been doing the right things during combat, but none of the complaints were about how I had actually performed during combat, and there were no complaints about my build. Instead, I was just told that my character was too much of a Boy Scout to be a fighter. The DM, a history major, told me that the chivalric way I was playing my character was historically inaccurate, and that I should play more aggressively or pick another class. This shocked me, as he was normally open to characters that broke stereotypes, and he was a martial artist IRL who was quite a bit of a Boy Scout himself. This wasn't an evil or even edgy campaign, so my character's personality overall wasn't the problem. I was just told to put it with another class instead. Paladins were limited to being god-based only, and that didn't fit with my character's personality either. I just wanted to play a decent, supportive guy who also knew how to fight and was careful about escalating conflict. Ultimately, despite it being a great group with great roleplay interactions, I chose to leave. Even if I create a new character, I just don't know if I can trust the DM to work past these kinds of stereotypes anymore. I recently asked the DM if he thought that casters should immediately jump to trying to solve all problems with spells, and if rogues should try to solve all problems with deception. He basically said yes. Am I missing something here? Yeah, this is definitely weird. I don't know if complaints means other players were complaining about your character, or if the DM is just trying to pass the buck. But it seems overly controlling for a game like D&D. And yeah, sure, there's the trope of everyone finding the goody two-shoes characters annoying, but that's usually clerics and paladins, not nice guy fighters. Either way, it's your game too. D&D is collaborative, not competitive. And regardless of who started this fight, it sounds like you and your fighter did actually end it by walking away, so good job there. But that's just my take on this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. You shouldn't have called him a bard! This one's super tame, no one hates each other at the end, sorry. The party was getting ready to go to Spooky Place to defeat Spooky Guy before he could destroy Home City. On the way out, they hear a bard in a tavern singing about the dismal state of affairs and criticizing the lordship. They decide to go in and talk to this fella, and the warlock ends up recruiting him to go to Spooky Place with them. You want me to go to Spooky Place? Isn't that kind of dangerous? I'm not the cool kind of bard, I can't afford college. The party assures him that he won't be there to fight, but simply to play music and distract Spooky Guy. They even pay his wages directly to his poor mum in advance in case he dies. The warlock may not have paid attention to this part. It went how you expect. The bard played his music and distracted Spooky Guy, but ended up standing between two party members and died in a big AoE attack. Warlock, as soon as this poor man dies for him, most useless bard ever. Me offended. He just died doing exactly what you hired him to do? He didn't give me a single inspiration. He didn't have that ability, he was just a commoner. Well, you shouldn't have called him a bard. But he is a bard, just not the cool kind, like he said. You know what a bard is, right? No. After having the word explained by the rest of the group, he insisted that I should have used the word musician because bard is a class in the game. I said, nah, it's a fantasy world, I'm using fantasy words. For the record, Spooky Guy was defeated and the bard not bard helped. TLDR, Warlock marches Commoner to his death, then calls him useless for not having class abilities. Oh my god. Okay, so in all seriousness, I did just want to do something lighthearted, a bit of a palate cleanser after all the drama stories I've done lately, and this is just silly. He does know that D&D classes are named after real-world titles, professions, and concepts, right? Are we not calling people who fight fighters unless they know Indomitable now? Quick, fire every park ranger that can't sense dragons and fae at level 3. Anyway, pour one out for the bard not bard. He was the most bard of us all. Pay your respects in the chat. That guy gets mad at every other player for not playing our characters correctly for their classes. I just had a session 0 for a new Daggerheart game set in ancient Greece, inspired by Homer's writings and other epics from that time. All of us are experienced with ttrpgs, but none apart from the GM have played Daggerheart itself. Well, when we started pitching character ideas, that guy takes issue with all of them. I decide to make a seraph, a holy protector, basically a paladin or cleric, but notably are not necessarily bound by an oath, who had betrayed their duty in order to save somebody close to them, and entered a self-imposed exile as penance. Well, that guy complains that paladins can't break their oaths like that without falling, so I can't play a character like that. I point out that I'm not playing a paladin in D&D, but a seraph in Daggerheart, and the DM agrees with me, so he drops it. I thought that would be it, but it was not. Another player decides on a witch who learned the basics of magic from Artemis as a child, and uses a bow to fight in honor of her goddess. That guy starts complaining about a spellcaster using a weapon, and how witches should use magic through a staff to fight instead, and how the witch's player doesn't understand witches if he thinks they could ever use a bow. The witch's player tells him that it's his character and doesn't have to follow tropes. Then the last player decides to play a warrior who is the demigod son of Hephaestus. Again, that guy took issue with it. This time he complains about the character having a magical backstory when warriors aren't supposed to have magic, and that warriors should be regular people who stepped up instead of because they have magic in their veins. At this point the GM had had enough and let that guy know that he isn't a good match for the table. But before he is removed from the server, he goes on a big rant, yelling about how we are a stain on roleplaying for not knowing anything about how classes are supposed to be played. Okay, I'm noticing a trend of stories about people that are just trying to dictate how characters are played in relation to their classes. It's such a weird hill to die on in a world where you have demigods and witches and seraphs to pitch a fit and get removed from a game over whether they're done correctly. I mean, am I wrong in thinking these games are supposed to be fun? Feel free to correct me. But the thing that makes TTRPGs so great is that anything's possible. And even the rules themselves are flexible for the sake of everyone's enjoyment if that's the kind of game you're running. But if your enjoyment stems from dictating how other people make their characters, then this is not the game for you. But that's just my thoughts on it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Player character kills an NPC without a single dice roll after stealing his partner. This is the first of many horror stories I have about this campaign. It's been long enough that they make me laugh at this point, so I figured it's time to share them. So we're playing this campaign. DM clearly has a huge bias for one of the players, her best friend, who played a catboy warlock. Oh no. To the point of changing the campaign plot because the player romanced the vampire lord big bad evil guy, which immediately forced us to give up fighting him without a proper reason. He was still evil, our characters were still morally against him, but DM and Warlock loved him, so going against him was out of the question. But a campaign needs a villain, alright, so the DM had what must have been a great idea to her. Taking the big bad evil guy's previous love interest, also a vampire who was by no means a villain and was immediately set aside upon the arrival of Warlock and the beginning of his flirtations with the big bad evil guy, and turning him into the new villain. His sole reason for being a villain is that he was jealous of Warlock for stealing his partner, by the way. So far so bad, but at least we have something to do during the rest of the campaign. Fast forward, we have to march against the new big bad evil guy who acquired a castle for himself. The party, except for Warlock, who was still a player character but not really in the party anymore, was expecting a huge boss fight and never hid the excitement about it. We spent weeks getting ready for the fight, spent multiple out-of-character calls and game sessions getting ready for it, saved all our resources to make sure we'd be ready for the boss fight, and one of the players even tried drawing the castle based on the information we had so we could plan our moves beforehand. Mind you, the DM was aware of all of this, as she was present during the calls and was shown the sketches. The session comes, we run towards the big bad evil guy's room as fast as we can, trying to expend as little resources on the way so we be ready for the fight. Pause right outside the door to make sure we know what to do once we're in, and once we open that door, Warlock announces he's putting a stake through the big bad evil guy's heart. The DM announces big bad evil guy is dead because the stake pierced him through the heart. No dice rolls, no anything. We didn't even roll initiative. Whole party was left with almost full resources and HP and a quest completed with a single sentence. I still think about it so often. Oh no, the cat boys! They ruined everything! Oh god. For real though, that's not a game group, that's a forcible fan club built around the DM and their besties' glorified one-on-one fantasy fulfillment campaign. I have no doubt that would have been fun for them to just go off and do by themselves, but everyone else is there to play as well, and like I always say, it's their game too. But that's just my thoughts. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Chaotic annoying player aggroes his party, cheats, leaves game. Basically, we're playing the Golden Keys Adventures, where your party are a group of thieves obtaining certain objects/people, etc. And one specific player, Warlock, was a nuisance who ruined our GM session. Warlock described his character as being here for the chaos, which I immediately noted as being the antithesis of a heist game where careful planning and preventing chaos is the whole point. It also should be noted that Warlock spends half of the session on mute in Discord and we're constantly asking him stuff and he doesn't reply. When he does reply, it's always to slight a party member, mainly me because I'm the most vocal. This ranges from me pretending to be Warlock's lawyer and Warlock interjecting that no, that's my doctor, completely ruining the ruse we're pulling to just be dismissive of everyone's plans even though he's contributing exactly 0 to this group. At one point, I give him gold to buy food since his character was exhausted from hunger. He didn't ask for it, the DM said he was starving and I willingly gave it with no hesitation. So naturally, Warlock pockets the gold and Mage Hand steals a loaf of bread and walks out of the diner we were in. Holy shit man, who hurt you? After multiple plans of mine he ruined by interjecting and doing the my character thing, he eventually goes on mute for a long time with no response back. He leaves the call and Roll20 out of nowhere and says he has to go, bye guys, which shouldn't be a problem if he hadn't done all the shit I listed above. I then decided to take a look at his character sheet and, surprise, he was cheating as well. He gave himself armor that he wasn't supposed to have, including 101 gold coins when everyone started out with 15 or less. Immediately messaged the GM about the cheating and his behavior, which he agreed was a problem. He's gonna talk to him soon, but honestly, I want him out. Or, I'm out. My first cheater story. Or, well, foreseeable cheater, since it sounds like this guy didn't really give himself much opportunity to make use of all the futzing he did with his character sheet. If it wasn't for the fact that he was clearly going to try and cheat at some point, I would say that at worst he's been a troll and a pill towards OP. Going against the grain for the giggles has its place in certain games at certain tables, and being a social stooge is its own mess to deal with, but none of that is egregious enough for me to write anyone off entirely. You know, wrong player, wrong table, move on. The cheating is definitely the sticking point, and I kinda wish we could see what this player was planning to do before he got caught. But that's just my thoughts on this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. This player has too much money. Time to die, I guess! Not totally sure if you all will consider this a horror story, but it still has me bummed, and I wasn't even directly involved. I'm playing a campaign with a player who is playing the same character in our campaign as he is in a different simultaneous campaign. He keeps separate loot and money for the separate campaigns. He recently told us that his character is now only in our campaign and how he died. Backstory. At some point their party found a dragon's hoard and were told they could each carry 5,000 coins. Shadow, the character, told the DM that he would pick through and only take platinum coins, and the DM okays it. I think the DM only realized how much that's worth afterwards, and this tale is his attempt to fix this. Also, they're playing Curse of Strahd, but this doesn't really come up except for when his character dies. To avoid spoilers, Shadow found a guy in need of help but was stopped by guards. He fails his high deception and tries to bribe the guards. They want a total of over 600 gold, about 100 more than he had on him. He tries to persuade them, but gets killed by the guards instead. If there was combat rolled, it lasted less than 1 round. They take his money and somehow know which room he's staying in and toss the place. Another player rolls to convince the guards it's only her room, they had been sharing the room, and rolls a natural 20. They leave her 500 gold and take all other coins. The whole party's funds. Out of character, the player is talking to the DM about how to resurrect his character. As I understand, in Barovia you can't really escape, even in death. The DM tells him after shooting down a couple of plot-driven ideas that his character is permanently dead and to roll another. His character's body is burned to drive the point home. Side story, as the player is telling us about the tragic death of his character, I'm picking up clues to another horror in the works. There is only one girl at their table, playing the only female character. The villain is very focused on this character, talks only to her, wants her to be his bride, and has even made her a vampire. But only the benefits. This is second-hand, of course, but the player telling the story seemed weirded out by the villain/DM's actions towards the other player. I do want to point out that while the party was ungodly rich, they had not done anything with it, nor did they have any plans to spend it. While the DM could have controlled the value by limiting the things for sale and/or jacking up the prices, he chose an untimely death and robbing the whole party instead. TLDR, player got murdered by DM for his successful get-rich-quick scheme, whole party loses most of their money, DM creeps on the girl of the party in the background. Ew. Yeah, no, that sounds like a number of horror stories waiting to happen. Creep factor aside, punishing a player for their creativity and your lack of planning and taking it out on the whole party is just insanely stupid. But all that pales in comparison to him creeping on another player. But that's just my thoughts on that. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. We don't care about your knots. That time I was kicked out of a game for trying to explain pulley systems. Recently, when going down a rabbit hole of knot tying and pulley systems, I found it so fascinating that with enough rope, tackle blocks, and some smarts, a person could theoretically lift anything that is not tied down. My character concept was fairly simple, a rogue swashbuckler who has a particular fixation with tying knots. He had a monkey's fist and a dagger as his weapons of choice, a cool ball knot that encases a lead sphere that can be swung like a little mace. At first, the party liked my knot-fueled antics. I strung up a few rocks and created a quick-release knot and smushed an ogre's head in. And I was always making traps. I even opted to dip into Magic Initiate and get the snare spell and covered our primary base in them. Eventually though, the fatigue began to set in and people began using magic to solve their problems. Which is fair, but like, knots! The straw that broke the camel's back was me and the DM having an unpleasant conversation about whether or not I would be allowed to stack blocks and tackles to lift a massive boulder blocking a room within a temple. In real life, it's definitely possible. There are historical accounts of the great Archimedes who lifted an entire boat with pulleys by his lonesome. It just took a very long time and needed a lot of rope. So I thought it was a bit unreasonable that he was vetoing the idea. Sadly, I took things too far and, well, I got booted. I was a jerk and the allure of knots caused me to tie my own noose that yanked me away from the group. If you see this, DM, I am sorry. Your roleplay skills are exceptional and I was deeply invested in the world you made. I understand why you were put off by my behavior. So yes, I was the horror story. Let this be a lesson. Knowing when to shut up is one of the most useful skills that anybody should learn. Such truer words were never spoken. Seriously, as fun as ropes and knots are, magic is a quick and easy fix that lets other players share the spotlight to your antics. Sometimes you just gotta follow the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. But the self-awareness in this post is definitely refreshing. Sometimes we can let our esoteric niche interests and hyperfixations dominate the conversation, which is an easy way for someone to unknowingly become a problem player in any setting, even with the best of intentions. To the OP, I know you got hoisted by your own petard this time, but don't let this get you at the end of your rope. You cottoned on in good time, you didn't get tied down, and you didn't pull the wool over your own eyes. And you spun a great yarn to boot. Just don't string people along next time. But that's just my thoughts on this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments.